Alright, video really for just the consumption of one individual, I think. Well, maybe two, Antikondabad and Hofladay. Because I really don't think the average person has any problem. Their duplicity is in a different place than the duplicity of these individuals. So, I'd say that the average person clearly knows the value of their sensations. And clearly knows if I made a universe and I made 7 billion of thems, identical to them, clones, and I tortured them, they know that wouldn't be a good universe. It'd be fundamentally flawed. They'd get that. If I made a hell and I tortured them in it forever, they would get that, yeah, that can't be a good idea. There's got to be a better plan. Got to be a better way to do it. That's like the worst way to do it. You can't really think of a worse way to bake the cake of a universe than to torture me in 7 billion forms for zillions of years. That would be just stupid. Bad idea. Don't do it. Don't press that button. And I think most people could figure that out. Now what they can't figure out is Jews feel. Okay, they don't get that. Or they don't get something simple like that. They find some way to eviscerate the reality of other people's welfare, and they say it's okay because they're too stupid to feel, or they're too evil, or they have pain-killing horns or something. They come up with some preposterous rationalization to make other people's pain turn into nothing, so they can ignore it. That's their duplicity. So that's the common duplicity I'm fighting, is this idea that, somehow, if I migrate a broken leg, say a broken leg is coming right for us, and there's a group of us, most people think, if I can deflect it to that guy, I win. I've done something smart. When no, you've done nothing. You really haven't accomplished anything. It's not a good deed. It's not clever in any way. If you didn't analyze first who the best person capable of withstanding the broken leg would be the smart thing to do, kind of a thing. That the experience is the thing that has value. Who's experiencing is irrelevant, pretty much. And it only has meaning, as I've pointed out, in the context of a system of reward and punishment, where you can deter actions and encourage action. So anyway, alright, so we've been over this, and I'll just go over it again, because this video is just premised. It's just all false premise, all the way through. Just false premise after false premise after false premise, in the sense that he uses little language tricks to evade what has been stated to be the truth. And because he's attempting, as I'll play this clip where it's going to be the end of the video for me at 5 minutes, because it's just such a stupid remark. In the sense he's conceding the fundamental argument, which is we have nothing to talk about. And he just won't admit that. I mean, there's no point in me playing soccer with you if you don't allow the existence of goals. Why would I play? It's a stupid game. Oh, let's go run back and forth and not score any goals ever. Because I won't allow you to make a goal. There won't be any. The end zone will be the same as the side zone. And we'll just run around in a box. And that's how he thinks reality works, because he won't allow there to be anything real in it. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So I have made this argument about subjective projected value and real intrinsic or absolute value. And the argument I'm making quite clearly is that without a sensate organism on planet Earth, nothing could mean anything. It's just a comic strip. It's a video game. It's a piece of nothing. It can't have significance in terms of any kind of value problem. Nothing important happening here in terms of how it happens. It just couldn't possibly matter, especially if no one's even watching the TV show. So it's like saying I make the SpongeBob cartoon and then I don't broadcast it. I mean, it couldn't be more irrelevant, could it? Yeah, I mean, the characters in the cartoon don't feel, and nothing feeling is even watching it. So how could it possibly mean something? No, couldn't possibly mean anything. Couldn't be important. And that's what this is our conversation's about. What is significant about being here on planet Earth? And what I'm making this simple argument is what I've observed as a conscious organism is the significant thing happening on planet Earth are experiences and the quality of those experiences. That's the important thing. So anyway, but the idea of projected value doesn't mean that all value is going to be projected, because I've already explained that. Your brain absorbs the universe in bits of information, and it coalesces them into a picture of reality. And the picture is either accurate or inaccurate. That's the argument. Now, you can project in the sense that you can see a value incorrectly. I can see, let's say there's a robot called Hothliday, and it doesn't really feel. Well, I might be fooled into thinking, well, that's a real person and has real feelings, and I might worry for it. And that would be a wrong projection. Now, the vice versa could happen, where I think he's a robot and he's actually a living person. And then I'm projecting no value, and there's real value, so I'm missing something very important. See, so projection is inevitable. The point is accurate versus inaccurate descriptions or perceptions of the reality. So, yes, I use the words projected, and people use the word subjective. But the real point to get to is accurate and inaccurate assessments of potential. That's all we're really doing, is assessing potential. Yeah. I mean, if we that's probably as strict a definition as I can give it. Like in assessing the potential of using certain cheap steel in a building, or not putting bolts in a building, you can assess the potential risk imposed by such shortcuts or such behavior. All right. Money has real value in the sense that it has real use value. So I guess you could put this down to something being of direct value, which would be the feeling organism, directly is creating value. And there can be resources or things in the world, like this pen, that can have the ability to affect those things. So they have use value. So he uses this analogy of a kid playing with a ruby or something, a big giant ruby, and not appreciating the value. Well, that's because the kid is ignorant. He doesn't understand that, well, I could cash this, I could sell this to a silly rich person and get real money, and with that real money I could feed my family. I could feed my whole village, and we could all live really well, instead of me sitting in the dirt, playing with a ruby. I could be doing something intelligent. But he doesn't see the potential because he's a dumb, ignorant kid. Very similar. So this pen probably doesn't have much use value. It's not going to make too many people feel good or bad. It's not very significant. But if this was a vial full of a cure for cancer, well, different story then, right? Or something that prevented cancer, not even a cure, but a prevention. You just drink it and you're immune to cancer. Cancer immunity. Then this vial has tremendous value because it can be used to mitigate against the enemy, which is suffering. The bad thing in the world. The bad component. Alright. Alright, because it can, so as I stated, money has real use value, as it can reliably prevent or dispose of real suffering. So the suffering is real, the component happening to the sensate organism, the experience, is real. Everything else is indirectly valuable. The value is still real. The vial of cure is real. It just needs to go through a process. It needs to be processed into a real accomplishment. So it's in the potential form, not the kinetic form. The kinetic form is the experiencing individual. The potential form is in the form of more efficiency or greater this or greater that in terms of protecting people from harm, like knowledge. All right. Then we go from, so again, more of this non-real equals, does not equal projected, because these are two different kinds of concepts. When I say it's projected, I'm usually implying that it's a subjective projection based on poor data, incomplete data, personal bigotry. And I've made that argument over and over again that those are the wrong assessments of reality that I'm trying to get to. Now, maybe I have to just come up with more explicit language for you to get it, but I'm not saying all projected perceptions are inaccurate, and that's the point. They have a degree of accuracy. I'm saying that if somebody sees a Jew and says the Jew doesn't feel as much, I'm saying they have an inaccurate perception of reality. So the real argument is accurate versus inaccurate descriptions of reality, which has really been what I've been arguing in all my videos. So I don't think you should be as confused as you pretend to be. So as stated here in my notes, if the child was playing with, let's say, a galaxy instead of a ruby, something more directly involving, the welfare of sentience, and let's say there was hundreds and millions of planets with hundreds of billions of feeling things on them. It's playing with it because it's just a shiny toy to the child. The child has no understanding. So the ignorance is in the child's perception that there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to worry about. When, of course, throwing it the wrong way or doing the wrong thing makes the galaxy turn off and horribly and miserably kills all the poor inhabitants of all the planets and blah, 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 blah. So it's consequential. Let's see. So it's treating victims like toys, and victims aren't toys. People aren't toys. So unless you think they're toys, which I guess you do, then we don't really have a conversation, as I've pointed out so many times. You won't play the game with the appropriate goals, so there's obviously no reason for me to play on your field. It's not soccer, it's not football, it's not a game. There's no rational coherency to my universe. My universe, sensations have value, and I have no rational reason to believe other people's sensations don't have value. And I certainly have no rational reason to believe other mammals' sensations have no value. No rational reason to believe that at all. And again, you're not going to be able to use words to deny my personal experience with sensations. You're not going to be able to convince me that the horrible sensations are really good and that the good sensations are really not good. You're not going to be able to do that with words in any way I can imagine. And I'm pretty smart. I have a pretty good imagination. And there's absolutely no way I could even find any corner of that to grab onto. That just sounds like absolute nonsense. Alright. So the point is the child playing with the ruby would be ignorant, stupid, and unknowledgeable. Its perception of reality is incomplete and inaccurate and does not allow it the benefit of knowledge of how important the thing is that it's playing with. It doesn't realize that it's like its penis or something. It's an important thing. You don't want to harm it because you want to be able to sell it for zillions of dollars and save your people. Okay. So the next point, he must value your pain. Now, so he's arguing that, so he just doesn't buy this argument that we have any obligation to recognize each other's sentience and realize that it has a consequence. And the consequence is that you will feel negative sensations, I feel negative sensations, and that I don't make bad go away by deflecting it off of me and making it go into you. That's not a win. There's still negative sensation. I haven't cured the problem by deflecting a problem. I mean, it's just logical, I'm afraid. But the whole point is there's be no logical consistency in my philosophy, because I have no rational reason to believe your capacity to feel is somehow less than mine. I have every reason to think that some people will feel more and some people will feel less in some sort of balanced way. I have every reason to believe I'm of some generic middle of the bell curve. And it really doesn't matter, even if I'm at the end of the bell curve or at this end of the bell curve. The fact is that it really doesn't matter in terms of the argument, that I know there is a curve, and I know the substance of it is that we know there's things on this side of the fence and things on that side of the fence. As I've stated many times before, the extremes are still going to hold true. Torture is going to mean something to anybody on the curve, except for you, apparently. Yeah. So it's about intellectual integrity. You can't have intellectual integrity if you believe something without reason, or if you cheat the logic by, again, some silly assumption. I'm a real person, they're all leprechauns, and leprechauns don't feel. I'm real, they're a cartoon. I have no reason to believe that, and it seems clear that if I have a personal incentive to say, oh, they always should have broken legs and I should never have them because they're cartoon characters, so I should deflect broken legs from me to them because I'm important, they're not. That's not rational. Again, I've stated this before, but you think your brain, okay, you should be a bug, and you shouldn't be any smarter than that, and be able to figure out that the fact that you were born to have a brain, okay, nature intended for your brain to be a little scheming tool for this one individual's genetic code, that might be nature's plan. But the fact is, we're smart enough to play a better game than that, and realize that whatever my brain can do, if it can cure cancer, it should cure cancer for everyone, not just for me. The value is what I should be after. That's the goal. The goal is the improvement of the condition of sentient life on planet Earth. That's the goal. And you just don't see that as a goal. And I think that's just totally irrational. And unacceptably irrational. Dangerously irrational. Psychotically irrational. Alright, getting close to this point in the video. Let's see. Relate is the capacity, potential of objects to cause change. Yeah, so the only part that's relative. He keeps saying relational. Value is relational. So what? It doesn't change intrinsic. 2, as a number, has an intrinsic quantity. It's a 2-ness. It has the 2 volume. And yes, it's relational to 3, and it's relational to 5, but it's still intrinsically 2. So the fact that value is relational doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you're talking about something is accurately described as having the potential to do good or bad, or whether you're describing something as an actual kinetic producer of good and bad, which would be the sentient organisms. So whether you're talking about the relative volume of sentient organisms, there's 10 people on the lifeboat or there's 20 people on the lifeboat, yeah, these are different equations because there's more people, but it doesn't change the fundamental equation, which is the suffering, the amount of the ability to find a maximum value equation, one that produces the most good at the least cost of bad. That is, the most removal of bad at the least expenditure of bad. Alright, meaningless. So he claims he's not saying sensations are meaningless. And I'm just saying, I'm sorry, from my perspective, you can't be intellectually honest and make that statement, because you're saying that, you know, as he's going to make right here in this argument, that it's not real or intrinsic, and that he's going to turn it back into matter again. He's going to make this stupid matter argument that this pen is just the same thing as my brain. This pen is the same thing. There's no difference. My brain is just a configuration of matter. This pen is just a configuration of matter. This has properties, and this has properties, and somehow none of those properties can be value creating. And again, that's my fundamental argument. It's quite obviously the configuration of brain space that creates a sensation of torment and agony and suffering and pain is a configuration, no matter where I put it in the universe, is a bad thing. That configuration is bad. Now, you don't agree, so we have nothing to talk about. Again, there's just no rational coherency to my existence. My existence is, I realize I have a brain, I realize it has states, I realize that some of those states are obnoxiously horrible, and some of those states are not obnoxiously horrible. And that's what I know to be the truth. And I know that same thing is happening in all the other sentient organisms. Now, that's my premise. You can't accept that premise. You can't accept that playing field. There's no conversation to have because you're talking about a cartoon by comparison. This is the most important fact, and you're extracting it from the reality. You're turning our real lives into a comic strip and saying we're just little drawings on a piece of paper, and it doesn't matter what happens to us. We can put X's through them, we can make big noses, we can give them diseases, we can do anything we want to them. And this is a comic strip. It doesn't matter. No one really dies. No one really suffers. I don't believe that, idiot.
It's out of my mouth or anything like that.
Right, so he just says it never came out of my mouth. It comes out of your mouth constantly. You're constantly attempting to persuade, make the argument that there's nothing real to see here. And here he's going to say it right plainly. He says, never comes out of my mouth, and now he's going to have it come right out of his mouth.
Understand that you place value on the experience. And the experience is every bit as just a molecular state as is what you would call a projected value.
Right, okay, it's just a state like a piece of dog shit. So a dog shit is a human being. You treat the dog shit just like you would treat a human being. I mean, this is baby bath water kind of argument. I mean, there's just absolutely no point in me having a conversation when you can't make a distinction between a pile of dog shit and a feeling human being or a feeling dog. You can't separate the dog from the dog shit. It just makes you a shit for brain.
State.
And if the cause of the value experience is not meaningless, somehow the value experience is meaningful. And it just doesn't work that way. It works the other way around. Exactly the opposite, Dumbo.
Well, these are just blunt assertions now.
Yeah, it's a blunt assertion. I'm arguing that somebody can be confused. I can see this little piece of pretzel, and because my eyesight isn't too good, I can think it's a little baby frog, okay, with a neural network and a capacity to feel. And I can take care of it. Say, give you some water to jump in, and I can take care of it. And I can feel, good sensations based on the fact that I did something good, but I really didn't. See, so that's a misprojection. I projected wrongly. Now, the effect is I still feel good, which is good, and the welfare of the frog certainly doesn't matter because it's not a frog. Okay, it's a piece of a very hard pretzel. I almost broke my teeth on the fucking thing. Anyway, don't buy pretzel chips. Silly things. Anyway, what's the argument is that sometimes you can feel good for the wrong reason. Sometimes you can feel bad for the wrong reason. You can get all emotionally upset over something that really isn't something to get emotionally upset about, Your 117-year-old grandmother dies or something. You go, oh, yeah. And it's like, well, if you really analyze it, you hadn't seen her in 17 years. She really doesn't care that much. She really wasn't that terribly useful. If you really think about it, there's really nothing to mourn. Yes, so what? Life goes on, blah, 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 blah. And you say, yeah, all this emotional stuff is excessive. But it doesn't change the fact that the emotion happened and that the person's pain was real, in the sense of how they experienced it. Now, they experienced it inappropriately because they misidentified the truth. Well, that doesn't really matter. That's what I was saying. Asshole. The only thing that matters is what people experience. Why they experience doesn't matter too much. Only when we're getting into a philosophical conversation about how we have to derive some sense of empathy to actually personally motivate ourselves. So if we don't really identify a cause, if you don't really believe in the war, it's going to be hard to fight the war. You have to really, conjure up some personal interest.
And this is a problem. Emmanuel doesn't understand when he's just bluntly asserting things.
Yeah, well, whatever. It's a blunt assertion based on personal experience. Again, how can I can't say it any clearer to you. My evidence is personal and real, and I'm arguing that every other human being probably has the same evidence. So I'm just saying you may believe that most people can't see the value because they think everything's an inanimate object in a cartoon. But no, I don't think that's what they think. The only way they do it is because they're bigots. Okay, and they do it through a rationalization of personal interest. They just say, I know my feelings are important. I know it would be really bad if I was tortured in the real sense of the word. It would be a bad thing happening on planet Earth. I know that to be the truth. Okay, I just would like the convenience of being able to say it's okay to torture that other guy, because that's beneficial to me when I'm deflecting torture his way. That's all. For convenience. Most people are just acting out of bigotries. I'd say it's a blunt assertion that you actually don't think it matters whether you're tortured. I think your blunt assertion that you really do, to be intellectually honest, you think you're a cartoon character and it's quite irrelevant whether you're tortured or not. I think that blunt assertion is a pile of fucking shit.
We have to take, right?
I think you're just such a fucking bigot that you've realized you're a bigot, and you've come up with this preposterous cartoon theory of reality just to escape any kind of obligation to recognize the truth. And your intellectual dishonesty is revealed in the fact that I don't think you are unaware of the importance of your sentient welfare.
I'm describing.
No, I'm not going to do that again. So anyway, I'll cut this. There's no point. Like I said, we already got through we already got to the dumb premises. We've established what the fundamental disagreement is. He won't accept the fact that I can personally experience sensation, put them in categories of good and bad. And to be intellectually honest, I assume the good and bad to exist in all the other sentient organisms. The organisms that have, for every rational reason to believe, the mammals especially, to be sentient. And that's all. That's the only crime I've committed, is establishing that I recognize the value of my sensations. Therefore, I have to recognize the value of the other sentient organism sensations, because they're basically and fundamentally the same fucking thing. I can say, yes, my name's Gary and I have blonde hair and I have blue eyes, but those are all irrelevancies to the fact that I feel and they feel. That's the only thing that matters. They're all trains if it was trains. They're all trees if this was trees. They're all rocks if this was a driveway. I can't sit there and make some silly... I can't walk out into the road right now, find one little tiny rock in the road, and say, this is the special rock. This one matters. It's me rock. And all the other rocks are irrelevant. That would be intellectually dishonest. Alright. Enough to the stupid cretin. Cretin. You're a fucking cretin. With the brain of a crouton.